Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to EuroNurse. We come to you live every Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Glad to have a lot of you on board live. If you're watching us live from any of these channels, great. Hey, I got a request here for the. I always point to the wrong side. Subscribe to YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, we're only 5 subscribers away from hitting 2,000. Now, I don't know what'll happen when I hit 2,000, but it'd be fun to find out. If this is your first time visiting EuroNurse, be sure to check out our website at euronurse.com, the best place to go to learn more about the show. Also, the best place to watch all of our 118 past episodes available on demand anytime you want to watch. Maybe you don't want to watch. Maybe you want to listen in your car on that trip to work. No problem. Just go to our EuroNurse Plus area and it'll bring you over to our podcasting choices. You can pick whatever thing you like to use the podcast, and you'll get them delivered to your mailbox every week. They come out about a half hour after this show finishes airing. Hey, we've got another new sponsor for the show. Convatec has joined us as a sponsor. They're another gold sponsor, and we welcome to the show. Anytime you want to see any of our sponsors, just go and visit our website, and you can click through to visit their website through our website at their logos. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and bring in our experts right now. Before I bring in the experts, let's talk about what the show's going to be. So this week we are going to be having Dr. Feloney speaking about a new invention that he's bringing out to market. It's going to make putting catheters in simple. Well, actually, he named it SimplCath for female catheterization. Now let's bring in our expert panelists. Experts, welcome to the show. How are you doing, everybody? Oops.
Morning, everyone.
Dr. Feloney's mic and unmute it. There we go. All right, you're good. So, quick introduction. My name is Vic Sinise. I'm the host of the show. In case this is your first time here, I'm the one who started this whole thing, and I'll finish it somewhere. But I had a great time. I've been involved in urology for the past 40 years and strongly involved in urology education now. So, really enjoying that. Lori, go ahead and give us your introduction.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Atkinson. I am a certified urology registered nurse. I have been in urology for about 26 years now. I currently work for Northwestern Medicine in Geneva and Winfield, Illinois.
All right. And now our guest speaker for today is Dr. Michael Feloney. He's going to give his introduction, then we'll get the show rolling.
Hi, I'm Mike Feloney. I'm a urologist. I'm the chair of urology and professor of urology at Creighton University School of Medicine in Omaha, Nebraska. It's one of 4 Jesuit medical schools in the United States. I'm also the chief of urology for CHI Health in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's a division of Common Spirit Health, which is one of the largest faith-based organizations or faith-based healthcare organizations in the United States. And I'm also the co-founder of FNS Medical Solutions, co-founded with my partner, Dr. Sonia Sanchez. And I'll give you some more background when I get the slide deck up. I'll talk to you about my medical training and
go right ahead and bring up your slide deck then.
Yeah, let me. So my medical training, I started at another Jesuit school at St. Louis University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri for my medical school training. And then from there, I went on to the University of Oklahoma in Oklahoma City for my surgical internship and my residency in urologic surgery. And then I went on to Robert Wood Johnson Medical and Dental School for my fellowship in female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery. It's now called urogynecology and reconstructive surgery. And that was a program with Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I keep wanting to say Phoenix for some reason. So why am I here talking to you all? Well, Vic got wind of what I was doing in Omaha, Nebraska with this device of female catheter assisting device, and then invited me to speak. And Vic, I just wanted to thank you for being excited and being curious and letting me tell my story and introducing this female catheter assisting device to the audience. Vic, this platform is great because the people that you're trying to reach are the people that inspired me really to develop SimplCath. Nurses and MAs. My mom was a nurse, and my mom had it was a med surg nurse, and I've seen nurses struggle with catheterization of females. And my mom, I talked with my mom about it, and she struggled with cathing females. And so what I want to talk to you about it all, but I also want to get the perspective from the nursing staff and the medical staff on this. Your feedback would be great for me. And also I want to be able to maybe, hopefully something fruit will come out of this, and I can collaborate for research and to potentially validate what I'm seeing already in my practice for patients. So let's talk about catheterizing patients. It can be easy, but it can also be difficult. And I think sometimes it can be just downright challenging. And this is catheterizing men and women. But they're different and challenging for different reasons. And this is where my story begins. So when I was a medical student at St. Louis U, when I was a third year medical student, I was on a surgery rotation, and we had a patient develop urinary retention, a female patient develop urinary retention. And the resident asked me to go get a catheter kit, and then catheterize this female patient. And I catheterized male patients without a problem. And I thought, it'll be pretty smooth and easy, and I'll just go into the closet, get a catheter kit. So I went to the closet, and now this is the days. Now they have Pyxis now, and it's a little more complicated. But I just went to this room, and all the supplies were in this closet. And I was looking, and I found the catheter area. I found the catheter kits, but I was looking for a female. I was looking for a female catheter kit, and there happened to be a nurse in there, and I couldn't find the female catheter kits. And I go, hey, could you help me find the female catheter kits? And because when I catheterized the male patients, the catheter kits were already there. So I didn't realize I was going to run into an issue. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, there are no female catheter kits. She's like, it's the same kit for men and women, for boys and girls. And I go, really? And she was right. And so the same catheter kit, can everyone see my mouse? The same catheter kit that you open up, and you open up all these pieces. You use the same pieces, same catheter, the same gloves, the same betadine, the same lubricant. Everything, even the drapes, are the same for men and women. And so what we've been doing is we've been using catheter kits designed by men for men and on women. And I think that's what she was really trying to tell me. And it's crazy. And the reason why it's crazy is because men and women are so different, especially their genitalia. Now, men and women don't even wear the same shoes. They have, their feet are much more alike than their genitalia, and their torso are much more alike. And they have different shirts. They even call them blouses, and they have buttons on different. And I learned even recently that they have gender specific prosthetic knees. And so there's a problem there, and there may be even a gender equity issue. And so over the years, I heard these stories. I've seen it for myself firsthand. People having trouble, nurses having trouble catheterizing female patients, even myself. But I wanted to study it a little bit more systematically. So what I did was I sent out. I got an IRB approval, and I reached out to all the nurses in CHI in Omaha, Nebraska, and sent them a survey about catheterizing women. Now, there was a wide range of experience, and from 1 year experience to 20 plus years of experience. And I broke that out, and then there was no difference. 1 year experience, 20 years experience, they really responded the same. And of those that responded, 82% of the nurses said they admitted that sometimes they did find it difficult to catheterize women. 83% admitted that they had to burn catheters. They contaminated catheters and had to get another one. 90% overwhelmingly said, hey, they would be welcome to seeing something to help them, or someone to help them, or a device to help them catheterize women. 84% said they even needed another person, another nurse, or another person in the room to help them catheterize patients. And subsequently, CHI Health in Omaha, Nebraska has made it a mandatory requirement that there are 2 nurses to catheterize women, to catheterize females during a catheterization event. And this contamination of catheters is the big problem, and that's what CHI recognized, is that it causes catheter-associated urinary tract infections. There's 600,000 catheter-associated urinary tract infection cases are reported yearly, and this is a hospital-acquired infection. And CADIs are the second most common hospital-acquired infection, right after respiratory infections. And Medicare, since 2008, is not going to be paying for these CADIs because it happens during the catheterization process. And we all know where the catheter is getting contaminated. The CDC states that the reason why catheter-associated urinary tract infections occur during the hospitals is because there's improper placement of the catheter. It gets contaminated on insertion. And we all know where that catheter is getting contaminated. It's getting contaminated in the vagina. And it's not intentional. It's accidental. Even I've done it. And it's just a reflex. You place the catheter, you're trying to find the urethra, and you put it in what you think is going to be the urethra meatus, but it's really the introitus. You're tricked. And then you're like, oh, there it is. And then you reflexively place the catheter in that urethra. We've all done it. It's not intentional. But there could be a better way. And that is problem. And that is one problem on that side for catheterizing female patients from the medical professional perspective. But there's another problem also with catheting patients, and it's the female patients themselves. They have trouble catheterizing, and for whatever reason, it could be multiple reasons. Patients can't empty their bladders, and they need to catheterize themselves. But I find frequently that they suffer from it, and these are some of the quotes that I've heard, and I'm sure others have heard it, is that I cannot catheterize myself. They don't know their own anatomy. They don't know that there's a urethra meatus. They don't know. They're not trained medically, so they can't find their urethra, or they have poor manual dexterity. They have poor depth perception, and they can't do it. Using a mirror is quite difficult. I've even had patients place their fingers in the vagina, and Vic himself said he's had to tell patients the same thing. But sometimes the patients find that distasteful. And so is there a better way? Could there be perhaps like a guide? And so I put my engineering hat. When I was in college, I went to another Jesuit school for undergraduate, and I had some engineering background. And I said, I put my engineering cap on, and I go, hey, maybe we can do something different. Could there be a way to block the vagina and protect the catheter from being contaminated? So I developed this device, and here's the face of the device, and that really will block the introitus, trying to prevent the catheter from being contaminated by the vagina. There are wings on the device that will actually retract the labia minora of the vulva. So, and that really can maybe spare a hand, free up a hand. And then there's this groove in the device where the urethra will fall into, and the groove will be like a landing pad for the catheter or a track for the catheter. And especially for those urethra meatuses that, because of vulvar vaginal atrophy, that retract inside the introitus, this groove can help guide that catheter into the urethra meatus. Now, and here I'm showing you this. I have this sample of one of the devices, 3D, so you can see it. I can't really see myself, so can you guys see it all? Is it coming through?
Yeah, we can see it.
Here's the face. There's the wings, and now and it's really soft. It's not. It's really soft, not rigid, very comfortable for the patients. And so now I'd like to show you a video. This is one of my patients, and bear with me on it. She was very shy and didn't want to be seen, so I had a Tony the Tiger it. I'm probably aging myself, but from the Frosted Flakes commercial, that's where I came up with the idea. I'm like, well, we'll just Tony the Tiger it, with the video for her. So she's going to talk about her experience with it. And I have, there's some nurses that are also talking about it. And there's also going to be a video kind of demonstrating how it works. All right. Hopefully this works. I'm going to go to it. I'm going to move the microphone.
A catheter isn't something you just talk about to people. It's a very private matter. Before I started using the SimplCath, I would get bladder infections about every 2 weeks. The reason I was getting the bladder infections is because it didn't empty completely. Without the SimplCath, I couldn't have done it the other way with just using a straight catheter. because being female, you can't see where you're putting it. It would take me 20, 30 minutes sometimes till I got just frustrated and wouldn't do it. And then I get bladder infections. I need to use the SimplCath about 6 times a day, and takes probably no more time than just going in using the bathroom.
Here's how it works. Once inserted, SimplCath blocks the vaginal opening, opens the labia, exposes the female urethra, and guides catheter placement. Better visualization, improved accuracy, and a decreased risk of contamination and catheter-associated urinary tract infections.
I've been a nurse for over 14 years, and the SimplCath has helped my technique in catheterizing females. By using the SimplCath, we are able to prevent any contamination of the catheter by being able to spread the labia and insert the catheter in really only one attempt.
Being a new graduate into the field, the confidence that we have is lower. So I found that using the SimplCath versus not using it makes it easier to get the job done and get the catheter into the urethra where it's supposed to be.
Before the SimplCath, it could take multiple times to catheterize a female, with the high risk of entering the vagina rather than the urethra. With the SimplCath, you can visualize the urethra and insert the catheter on the first attempt.
SimplCath gives me confidence so that all of my worries about not getting the catheter into the urethra are eliminated.
SimplCath has made an impossible job easy and safe. Life is much easier now.
Great. So I just want to talk about Pat a little bit more. Pat did struggle with catheterizing, and I first and Pat was my first patient to really try SimplCath, and she ended up in my office one day. I'd never seen her. She's in her 70s. She came in with a Foley catheter, and she was just beside herself. She had a neurogenic bladder for whatever reason, and I never really figured out why. She could never empty bladder, but she could not urinate, and she struggled with cathing for years. And it would take her just a long time, and most of the time she was not successful. So she ended up having a indwelling catheter, and she came to my office asking if I could maybe even take out her bladder or do something different, because she just could not live with an indwelling Foley. It was impacting her life so tremendously. And so I've been had this in my mind for a long time, and about developing this device. And I had actually on hand a prototype, my first prototype, my only prototype. And I was like, Pat was just so desperate, crying for help. I was like, Pat, I got this thing. I didn't even have a name for it. And I'm like, it's a catheter assisting device. Would you like to try it? And so she said she was very excited and very hopeful. And she said, yes, I'll try anything. And so I said, okay. So I took out the catheter, showed her the device, explained a little bit how to work it. And then I let her, straight cath with it. And she was successful. And I came back in the room and she's like, I was able to do it. And I'm like, okay, great. So I said, okay, well, you get dressed and I have to take this phone call and I'll come back and we'll talk. We'll talk about what the next steps will be. So I left. When I came back, the room was empty. Pat had left. And I was like, whoa. And then I noticed that Pat had also taken she'd taken my only prototype. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I was happy that it worked, and it was hopeful. I was like, well, I got a good device. But she took my only prototype, and which was I was sad. So I had some mixed emotions there. So I tried to get a hold of Pat, but couldn't. She was off with the SimplCath device. So then what I decided to do was I'm like, well, that was a good sign that there's something successful could be going on here. So I decided to pour some more time and resources into this. I even went back to MBA school, met my partner there to do the research on the device and do some regulatory work on it. I've got clearances and got some patents. And then I went on and in the process of this, I met Brandy, and she was one of the patients in my IRB approved trial. And I want to share her story. I want to share her story because she provides a different perspective. She's a younger patient, much younger, and she's a paraplegic, and she uses the device in a little bit different way than Pat was. And I'm going to come back to Pat in a second, but we're not through with Pat. She does come back again. So Brandy, we're going to have Brandy tell her story. I'm going to hit this button and hopefully it works. Can you guys hear me okay?
I was spinal cord injury as a result of an unfortunate accident. It left me with a neurogenic bladder and the inability to empty my bladder on my own. I needed to self-catheterize or use an indwelling Foley catheter. I had trouble self-catheterizing, but I was able to self-cath using the SimplCath, the female catheter assisting device. It helped me learn to self-catheterize. For me, using SimplCath was like using training wheels on a bicycle in order to learn to ride. So now I don't need to use SimplCath anymore. SimplCath gave me the skills and confidence to self-catheterize myself.
All right, well, that's great. So Brandy used the device, and I was shocked by this as well. She used the device for a short time just to get the muscle memory. She said it well. She used it like training wheels, so she doesn't need to catheterize. She learned to self-cath with this. And I wondered about Pat. Pat did come back. Pat came back 4 years later with her hat in her hand and scared. But I was never angry with her. I was very happy that she was able to change her life. She came back, and I didn't know what she did with it, but she used the device 6 times a day for 4 years, and she handled it like gold. She cherished this thing. She would put bowls in the toilets at restrooms, trying to cover it up so she didn't lose the device. And she had a camping site, and she would go to an outhouse, and she would place netting and so forth underneath the hole so she did not lose this device. And the device was falling apart, and she's like, can I get another one? I'm like, yes, you can have another one. I mean, I went farther along with the device and actually created more prototypes and got it went through the research and got it FDA cleared for her. And that's where I want to talk about where SimplCath is today. So it is protected with non-provisional utility patent. It has an FDA Class 2 clearance, and it is available. It is available online, and it is a limited availability in some select pharmacies in Omaha, Nebraska. It don't have a big footprint. It's not out there too much, but it could be better. If anybody ever wants to contact me or talk about, they can reach me at this email at fsmedicalsolutions@gmail.com. We can get access to talk about it. So there is some endorsements. It is endorsed by the American Occupational Therapy Association. They heard about it and were fascinated because this association really deals with a lot of neurologically impaired patients with neurogenic bladders that want to try to teach patients to self-cath. And this occupational therapists have found that it's very difficult to teach patients with neurological injuries. And they are excited about this device because it is really the only device available to really have medical professionals and patients use to catheterize. And here I'm just going to kind of close. Thanks for listening. I really would like to have a good discussion and get some feedback from nursing and other medical staff out there about the device, and maybe hopefully develop some relationships to get some collaborative research to really study the impact this is in certain populations of patients. I appreciate your time, and we can maybe even talk about later on about how the device came into existence. All right, thank you.
All right, that was great presentation. Gonna have you can actually kill out that part of your show so you can see the full view.
Can you see it? I'm trying here.
You should see the three of us.
I'm trying to find you here. I'm getting rid of the. Here we go. All right, can you guys? I can see you guys now.
Perfect. All right. Sometimes working the technology out is always the trick. But that's really a neat. When you first I sat down, we kind of talked together, and I saw this device. I'm like, this is why I created UroNurse, because there's so many little things out here by small inventors that don't have big sales forces to get out the word. And these are neat things that need to get in patients' hands. And I just thought this one was crazy. I'm going to kick off with a story, and then I'll turn it over to our audience. If you have any comments, go ahead and put those in, or questions for Dr. Feloney. But early on, when I first got into this field, I started out as an orderly, and I was working on a medical floor. And then I went into nursing. And so now when you become a student nurse, you get like a little bit of an upgrade in what you can do. And the nurses on the floor had known me for now probably a couple of years when I was an orderly, and they were anxious to teach me everything. So they wanted me to learn how to do things. Now, back in when I first started, you had to be, you couldn't, a female nurse could not catheterize a male patient. So they had actually trained a urologist from the hospital, had trained all the orderlies on how to do male patients. So I knew how to catheterize because I was one of the catheterizing orderlies. But of course, never did a female, because until I became an RN student, they wouldn't allow that. So they were anxious to show me. So I come in here, and they got like 4 nurses in the room and myself, and they're showing me how you put a catheter in. And they said, okay, here's how it goes, Vic. You put this catheter in, and they put the catheter in. They go, see, nothing came out. Don't take that one out. So they go back and they get another one, and they put the other one in, and nope, still didn't find the hole. Don't take it out. Well, this poor lady had, I think, 4 or 5 catheters hanging out of her vagina before they hit the urethra. And then they, see, now we got it. I'm like, that can't be the way to catheterize. So I think that kind of leads to your invention.
And that is, and they are trained that way, but and a lot of times they forget, though. They they're like really so close, and then they double dip, so to speak, and they can't help that. Yeah. And I've done it myself. I get confused. So I think you work. That is a very good story.
Yeah, glad to share it. Lori, do you have any stories on catheterizing?
Oh my gosh, when the providers come to me and say, "Oh, can you do a CIC teaching?" and I'm like, "Sure," and then I find out it's female. I'm like, "Oh," it's one of those things you just. I hope to God we can find the urethra very easily, So I had one yesterday, actually, and I was talking to one of the other nurses that I work with, and it's a male. And so I said, well, I'll do it. I'm a female, they're probably just more comfortable in general. So I said, it's just so hard for them. Like, you're trying to show them their anatomy with the mirror. Then you've got the catheter. Then you don't have 3, the patient does not have 3 hands. The patient can't hold themselves open, plus try to look at it with the mirror and put the catheter in. It's just, eventually they just have to do it by feel, and hopefully they can do it. So it's nice to see new products that might work. Now, the question I had for you, Dr. Feloney, is would it come in different sizes? I'm concerned about the sizes of females introitus, like the vaginal atrophy and things like that. Would it be painful?
It currently it is one universal size. It is currently at one universal size. And I really haven't had anybody have too much pain. Now, can it be big? I have different prototypes that I've used and I've had adjusted, and I got various iterations. So I do have larger ones, and it can be done that. And I anticipate down the road making larger versions, especially for postpartum patients or patients with different anatomy. But for right now, this seems to work. It really covers. I've been very happy with it. It's as a universal device. But you're right. There are going to be situations where specific patients. I mean, I imagine if someone has a very, some traumatic injury, or has some embryological anatomical issue, that this isn't going to work. Potentially, it could be too big. But it's not very big. It's really I've really had not had much encounters with anybody not being able to get it in. I found actually on the reverse, maybe it could be too small for some women to have very large introitus, and in the postpartum situation, I envision it maybe a little small. Though I have done some work in the with postpartum patients, and during labor, and it does work. It could be, and I admit it could be better, but it still does the trick. And the nurses were very appreciative. It did provide it did show them where the urethra was, almost like a speculum, but they're not handy. This could be very, very handy, and it's not in pieces. It's just one simple device. But it worked in those instances. But I'm not recommending that at this point, you know.
I'm always curious about people that come up with these ideas and bring something all the way to market. What can you take us through some of the steps that's involved in trying to get a new product to market?
Well, it is interesting. I never intended to do it. I intended just to have the idea and then talk to industry about it and see if they would take it and go. You know, that's how I envisioned it. And as I was going through the process, the industry people would always want to say, "Oh, I want it to be further along. I want it to be further along." And so I went through all of this, sort of just accidentally, trying to get further along so someone can take it off, so someone could take off with it. I started with going to certain industries, and they're like, it seems like a good idea, or they couldn't even understand it. So I developed a prototype, and then that's when Pat came in, and I gave my only prototype to Pat, and then I talked to the industry after that. I'm like, oh, it really does work, and I didn't want to make another prototype. I'm like, oh, it works. So I went to some of the industry, some of the vendors, and they're like, where is it? I'm like, well, Pat's got it. You know, Pat's got the device, and they're like, well, we need to see it. So I had to go. So then I got some more prototypes. So, and then I had to work on a CAD machine. So I had some engineering background. So I was able to work with CAD a little bit and create the drawings. And then I found a company that manufactures medical devices. And then I had them help me get primitive molds to develop the first prototype. And then we went on and developed more serious molds, and we decided to go, there's different ways of doing things, how to make products. You can assemble them, you can, print them, and now you can print them, but back then you couldn't really print them. And so I decided with this manufacturer to go with injected molding. And so we were kind of had that mindset about this is going to be an injected molded product with a medical grade plastic. And then I was like, and I did medical training. So I was in medical training, and I had no business background, nothing. And I was talking, basically when I'm talking to these vendors, it's business speak, and I don't know the language. So I was like, I needed someone else to help me with regulatory and help me with some research. So I was like, I got to learn. I got a lot of learning to do. So I took it upon myself. I went to MBA school. I enrolled at night school at MBA school. Much to my wife's chagrin, I decided to go back to school. And at night, I'm learning the business lingo, the business language. And also the second reason I went there, I'm like, I've got to find a partner. And that's what happened. I did. I met Dr. Sonia Sanchez. She was in MBA school trying to figure out the lingo too. And then we teamed up, and then we went and learned about how to develop new businesses, so to speak. It wasn't really for medical people. It was just a standard MBA school. But then we took what we learned and applied it. And I went on and learned about the patent process, provisional patents versus non-provisional patents. And we decided to go with right to a non-provisional patent, utility patents versus design patents. And you could do different words. And then we decided to take the long road. The utility patents is a broader, more protective type patent. We went down that road, and that took years. It was quite a quite interesting road trying to get the patents. And then we went on and decided to try to figure out how to do FDA clearances or FDA approvals or whatever. But it's FDA clearance is what it does. And went down that road and realized that we had to do some research, and we did some research trials. It was really hard to do that because I was first going along the lines of maybe using nursing students for the research, but apparently nursing students they're protected. They're like the research society is very protective of nursing students. And so that wasn't going to work. You couldn't work with nursing students because they're very highly protected. They're very vulnerable. And so then we went on, and I was like, well, I was wanting to use like the freshest, in my mind, I was like, oh, I want to use the freshest, most fresh person that's never even seen a catheter and see if it could work. But we got into using working with seasoned nurses 1 year to 20 plus years for the study and for patients. So then we went and got an IRB trial, feasibility trial, and that was it worked well, and we had some good data, and the FDA went along and cleared it, and then I would periodically reach out to vendors during this process to see if they'd be interested in taking it on, because I'm not a business person. I was a busy, I have a urologic surgery residency, and I wasn't really wanting to do this, but they're like, well, no, you got to be further along. And then I'm like, well, so then we formed the company at some point, and then worked up with manufacturing, got into all of that. And then eventually this is where I'm at. I've, done it like that. I recommend, having a vision, carrying it through, make small actions, be very, very, deliberate but slow going. It's not going to happen overnight. Don't give up. There's going to be a lot of naysayers. A lot of people just didn't understand what I was talking about, especially the vendors didn't understand what I was talking about, because it's a little novel. You got to think outside the box. But it works. And so you just have to keep going slowly and taking those steps and don't giving up, and partnering with somebody, holding you accountable, and holding them accountable really helps kind of pursue it. It's really hard to do it alone, I found.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not for the shy of heart.
It's not for the shy. There are a lot of barriers, and you just have to overcome these barriers, and there's ways, and just don't give up. I found it. Just don't give up. And what inspired me was Pat taking that device and using it for 4 years.
Yeah.
And it helped her, and I know it can help others, and it has helped others, but I think it can really help a lot of people and help a lot of nurses. And I'm doing it for the nurses as well, because I feel like they're marginalized. Not only are the patients marginalized, especially neurologically impaired patients, they're quite marginalized. And I think this is a population of patients that really deserve our attention. They really struggle, and they struggle from urologic issues. And I found that the nurses struggle as well on the floors. No one's paying attention to their needs. No one's making products for nurses or MAs, or for that, medical staff. They're kind of marginalized. And I'm like, I think it's a game changer for both these populations. And I've continued on developing, really focusing on other products I have coming out as well. I've for these patients, is particularly for catheterizing patients and catheterizing themselves. Some other new technologies but I could speak to later, maybe, if you ever invite me back, Vic.
No doubt. Lori, do we have some feedback coming in from our audience?
We sure do. So Janelle said adapted, she worked with, and she had a very similar idea. She thanks you for coming up with it.
Great.
And I'm sorry, I have to chuckle. I am the only one who wonders if the shape of the device will turn some patients away. I feel like many women will wonder why it's penis shaped. The top ridge seemed necessary, but can the bottom tip be smooth?
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a good point. I actually thought about that too. It
is phallic shaped, but it turns out so it really, the shape of it really does help keep that stays in place. So you could stay, if it was completely smooth, I found that it just falls out. And so it is a little wider. It is phallic shape. It didn't mean to be phallic shape. And I am a urologist, and maybe there was some unconsciousness to it, but no, it really doesn't. We can work with it. And but I found no patients have been turned off by it, because the patients that they're really they're not even thinking about that. They're trying to learn to self-cath. They'll really use the device to help self-cath. And for the nursing staff, I've not found any resistance, but we can validate that and look into it in some more research.
Were there different designs that you tried out originally? Different shapes, or was that the one you started with?
I've had some different shapes, and this ended up being just the best one for whatever reason, ended up being the best one. But yes, if it becomes a problem, you can smooth it out, and it should work.
We have another question. How is the device cleaned, especially in the clinic setting? Is it a one-time use?
So it is a one-time use, so in the clinic setting, the idea would be you would use it if you're having to cath a patient, you just use it once and throw it away. And then, or use it as it's a one-time use in the encounter for teaching a patient to self-catheterize. It is a one-time use. In the trials, they did wash it. So I do know that it is robust and can last 4 years, but it's not FDA cleared for reuse. But I've never, I don't tell anybody what to do with the device, but I'm not recommending that they reuse it. But in the trials, it was washed and reused in that manner.
Is it autoclavable?
It is autoclavable, but it will start to, over repeated autoclavings, it won't last. It'll start to change the form. But washing it, Pat used it for 4 years, and she just washed it. Yeah. But right now it is a single use item, and but I plan to work on getting it FDA cleared for reuse at some point.
So this is mainly you developed this for a teaching tool as opposed to like your lady Pat who took it home and used it all the time. So she realistically should have been not reusing it for 4 years.
Well, she took my prototype. I was intending it just for cathing, just learning to self-cath, getting that muscle memory. And Pat, she just ran off with it. And then I didn't realize that I thought she would have picked up on how to cath, and I didn't realize that she was going to use it every single time for 4 years but she never did develop it. She couldn't. I even tried having her do it. I'm like, you should be able to catheterize without it by now. And she's like, I can't. She's like, I've tried. So, that's what I was intending it as a teaching tool initially, and using it as a single use for nurses to catheterize somebody, straight cath them, replace a Foley catheter, and throw it away. Pat did take it to that next level. It was, just a random thing.
Yeah, I think that we all, if we remember nursing school, used to practice, the way we were taught, or at least I was on a mannequin whose holes right there and holes right,
Yes.
like there's no way you can miss that. And then, I totally remember the first time I went to catheterize, I'm like, what? Well, you gotta dig and move and so a device that makes it a little bit easier would be so nice when you're first teaching someone.
Yeah, and I intended also, for putting in teaching in nursing school, but to do research on the nursing students, I found was very difficult, very protected population. But I think this would be great for it's just an aid. And there are some very easy patients that can catheterize. Those women are out there where you see everything, it's just boom. But there are times where it's very difficult, and then you're getting another nurse, and you're taking so much time, and you're contaminating the catheter. And then once you contaminate, then you finally figure it out. Then you accidentally put a contaminated catheter in a patient's bladder, and then which possibly could lead to a catheter-associated urinary tract infection.
Yeah. Now, this device is available without prescription?
It's without a prescription. If you have to have a prescription for a catheter. So then it's a catheter assisting device. So you don't need a prescription for it, but if you do need a prescription for a catheter or a straight cath.
Patient wanted to buy one of these, they just go to your website?
Yes.
All right. And do you have a cost on it?
Right now it's, I believe, I think it may be $59 or around that, I think, or maybe $69. I don't have I can't remember the cost that I should have known.
You didn't know I was going to hit you with some big questions, right?
I didn't know I was going to get I didn't know how much. And that's what that's I think it's around that.
And is there any literature things that people can download or get for their offices to kind of explain to patients what this device is?
I have some. Yes, I have some available. I have some brochures that explain the device, and I do have some teaching videos that explain the device, how it works. But it's not. I don't have it like out there on the internet. So I do have some. If someone's using it, we do have some. Do have some teaching materials available. and there's a instruction sheet that goes with the device in the handouts.
So we had a question.
Any other any other feedback?
So, Janelle, could the patient learn in the office and take it home to reuse? Since it's, I guess her point is, if
same
if
patient
you have to throw it out,
it's not supposed to be reused, but
well, neither were intermittent catheters, but we know back in the day before they started paying for it, patients were always reusing them. It was just standard practice.
And patients were reusing and cleaning catheters and reusing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is, I can't recommend it from that standpoint, but it has happened, and I don't throw them out necessarily. It's good. It's a good teaching tool to have right there. So, to kind of remind yourself. But in the past, in the trials, the patients were washing them and reusing them, but I'm not recommending that formally.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The approval is single use.
The approval is single use. It is single use, but I find that a lot of patients really can use it, but they can take that, they own the device. They take it home with them. You're not forced to throw it out or anything.
Right. I have a patient who actually used the intermittent catheter, the same one, for 4 years. Never developed a urinary tract infection.
There are those sorts. I used to tell the patients to take their 6-inch catheter, wet paper towel, and microwave it.
Yeah, that was my technique. The microwave.
You did the microwave it for 30 seconds or something like that.
Yep.
And then that would clean the catheter.
Yeah.
Yep. So Katie Bortel, very interesting and informative. We all know that anatomy changes as we get older. And then Janelle, positioning and lighting are crucial for cathing women. Hospital nurses are cathing in patient beds, which makes it so difficult. This could be very helpful in urogyne office. I am much more successful because of lighting and stirrups, but everyone doesn't have that luxury. Well, especially the patients. I mean, they don't have stirrups at home, and well, at least I don't think so. So it makes it a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. In that setting, it's very easy. But sometimes you still get confused where things are even in that setting. But for the average nurse on a med surg floor, there are no stirrups. And it's hard, especially in post-op and anesthesia care units. The patients are in a chair. They're in a lounge chair. Very difficult. I think this could really help in those particular settings. I even approached the Department of Defense about it for our female combatants. I mean, it's easy. They have catheters in their kits, and it's easy to catheterize a male in field. But a woman, it'd be very difficult to catheterize a female soldier that's in trouble. And so I envision that this would be something that would be in their catheter kits. Now the generals and the admirals at the meeting were like, "Can you gunify it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can make it like a gun." We can put they're like, "Can you put the catheter on it and shoot it in?" And I'm like, "Yes, sir."
Yeah.
We can make it.
Well, I have a feeling that this device will really catch on. I think it's very innovative, and I think we've all that have been involved with catheterizing. The luxury of being in an office with stirrups makes this a whole different world. But when you're trying to do this in the hospital, that's used to be I would make rounds, and that's where I got called in for the cats that nobody could put in. And we all had that. And when you go to try to do a catheter in a bed, it's a whole different world. And
I'm really curious to see what it looks like. Like when it's like how does the urethra look?
Yeah.
I'm really curious.
Many times the urethra just ends up being right at the edge. Especially but if the female's atrophied, the urethra can end up kind of sliding back. The groove is wide enough that the urethra just pretty much falls in. It kind of lines up pretty easy, but usually it's right there. And you sometimes now on larger women, it will you may have to push it in further, and then it will still spread and kind of, and you have to, it'll crease up the wings, but it's pretty much, it follows right along. Now I'm not saying it's impossible to put a catheter in the vagina. I mean, but I think it reduces it significantly. Yeah. And I don't have that kind of data that it does reduce catheter-associated urinary tract infections, but the CDC doesn't state, they just state that the reason that catheter-associated urinary tract infections occur in women is because of improper placement or contamination. But they don't say where. They don't specify where, but we all know where it happens. It happens by being placed into the vagina and then going back in. I would imagine that this would reduce that risk of catheter-associated urinary tract, that double dipping phenomenon.
Yeah. Now you showed a clear one when we were talking earlier. Does it come in a clear and the white one?
I do have a clear version of it. The white version was more visible, easily seen on.
Yeah. But you can order either one.
That is a possibility. Right now, I have white. I do have some clears, and the audience and the staff. This is the feedback I'd like to have. Is the white? Would people think the white's more preferable or than the clear? There's different colors. You can make it almost any color.
And you'd mentioned something about looking for further research into this.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anybody that's interested in collaborating for specific populations of patients, I'd like to collaborate, and we could do some research and get more data on this. I have limited data. I know it works, but I just don't know, the significance. Does it reduce catheter-associated urinary tract infections? Does it reduce the FTEs? I imagine if you don't have to have two nurses, if you can free up some hands, it would reduce FTEs on the floor. Also reduce costs of if you contaminate a catheter, you have to throw it out. So it may reduce, going through supplies by this would be an extra supply, but it could, like you said, Vic, if you're putting 4 catheters in the female to find it, don't take it out, just leave it. This would be a cost savings for hospitals, especially since the Medicare is not paying for catheter-associated urinary tract infections. The hospital has to eat that. So if they can prevent a CAUTI, that's significant cost burden. And it's patient safety too. It makes the nurses aren't getting the training that they used to anymore. So it gives them more confidence going into a room that I'm going to be able to catheterize this female and not have to call a urologist in.
And what is the website again? Just
it's FS. It's let me see if I can do it. It's www. FS. Let me see if I get back to the screen here. Let me see if I can get back to that mode, and I'm going to go into here. I'm going to hit present and share screen here.
Yeah, we can bring that
put
back
it up.
up.
Let me put that back up. Okay. Here we go.
You just have to go to your PowerPoint.
Oh,
there you
go.
go.
Yeah, there it goes.
Into this.
Let me jump through it. Here you go. There it is. Sorry about that.
It's fsmedicalsolutions.com.
Yes, fsmedicalsolutions.com. www.fsmedicalsolutions.com. And then I can get email.
And you just put it into the
that's the link. People can just but you can write that down, and there's the email address.
Great. So we have that. All right. Any other comments or questions that came in, Lori?
So we have a bunch of comments. Great for patients. Thank you for designing this product.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a great product. And Janelle, I could have used this yesterday for a patient. So yeah, and I agree. I could have too, for sure.
Yeah. Well, great. This has been a great discussion. Really appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a great platform. It's ingenious. It's really good. I saw a lot of the stuff you have on there. I think it's great. You're doing a great job. And Lori, nice meeting you. Thanks for
Nice meeting you too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's
thanks
been
for
very much.
listening to me.
been quite a ride with with helping people out, learning about new products, and working with my experts. They make the show interesting. I just I like to push buttons, so that's
So
what I.
thanks for everybody for all the feedback you gave me just now. But if you have, but seriously, any other feedback, I'd appreciate it as well. And just reach out.
All right,
I'm happy to talk.
I do have a plug for next week's show.
On UroNurse, Diane Newman, a renowned expert in urology and continence care, presents the International Practice Principles for Intermittent Catheterization. These globally recognized guidelines focus on promoting safe and effective IC techniques, prioritizing patient safety, hygiene, and catheter selection. Newman's presentation emphasizes how healthcare professionals can reduce complications such as urinary tract infections and urethral damage by adhering to evidence-based practices. Her insights empower nurses and caregivers to provide high-quality, individualized care to improve patient outcomes, making UroNurse a key platform for advancing urological education. Join us next week on uronurse.com to learn more.
Yeah, you don't want to miss
That was
next week
serendipitous.
with Diane Newman. She's if you've never heard Diane Newman speak, you got to hear her. She's great. But she is the research person. She's always asking the question, how do we do this better? So I'm going to ask her if she knows of your device when I talk to her next week, because it'd be interesting to get her take on it. And she may be one, because like I said, she does a lot of research that might be interested in getting involved. So,
well, I'd love to meet her. Maybe she's even on.
she may be. I can't always tell who else. But a lot of people watch this when they want to, because it's always available on demand too. So with that, I'm going to end the show. Great having everybody join us this week. And we'll see everybody next week on UroNurse.